Well, here's the decomposition of the fundamental archetype. The dragon of chaos differentiates on the one hand into the feminine, that's the unknown, and the feminine differentiates further into the negative feminine and the positive feminine. The negative feminine is the reason for witch hunts. It's the reason for, you know, there's a whole group online called Men Going Their Own Way, MGTOW. That's a very interesting group to go study. There's lots of them. I don't know how many of them there are, and most of them are older. Many of them are men who've been through a particularly horrifying divorce for one reason or another, and they've had enough of women. So they tell the young men that they're teaching, never have a permanent relationship. Never share your territory with a woman. Never share your possessions. Make sure you never live together, and don't stay with one long enough to enter a common law relationship, because you will be stripped of everything that you have. Well, that's a hell of a thing to be telling people. But what's happened is that the female has been manifested in their life only as the negative archetype, and they've got that confused with all women. And that's partly, you know, you got to ask yourself, if you know the mythological stories, maybe if you made the right sacrifices, you wouldn't have so much trouble with women. It's a good question to ask yourself first. And I would also say, you know, if you're a woman who has trouble with men, or you're a man who has trouble with women, it's not the women and it's not the men, it's you. Because the women are telling you what's wrong with you, and the men are telling you what's wrong with you. And if you don't listen, then it's you. It's either you or all men. Well, that's easy, it's all men. Well, that's certainly how it's played out in the world right now. It's like, no, it's not all men. You can be, by definition. And it's not all women, that's for sure. I don't want to have anything to do with women. It's like, you're a pathetic weasel. That's the same statement.
So that was Dr. Jorden Peterson. Many of you know him. I've talked about him before in the context of Sam Harris, that discussion he had with him. And he's a man who's come to be very well known in many circles, you could say red pill circles. Best known for his fight against the extreme forms of SJWism and attempts to control and regulate speech. All well and good. Now, I'm not really one who is in the business of making response videos per se. However, a number of my subscribers had written me private messages, and not really in the sense of requesting, but asked me what I thought about this. And I think I can offer you a different spin on this snippet of a speech that Dr. Jorden Peterson offered than many. The original video that posted this snippet had a comment section that was just, pardon me, it's very early here, as well as one could imagine, just chock full of comments, most of them referring and alluding to the obvious. That even if you were to abstract away from things like Nawalt and what have you, the legal system, the government is stacked against you. And I mean, this isn't anything new. We all know this. Everyone who's been listening to my videos and Barbarossa videos and has been around the bend for a while, well, it's Russian roulette essentially. And with regards to the legal status of things and marriage and what have you, I'll get into that in a bit more, but I really want to get to the meat and drink of what I think is going on here. And notice how he doesn't just include men, it's women too. Yeah, there's something wrong with you. Pardon me, it's very early here, as I said, but I wanted to address this early. The issue is with Jorden Peterson himself. Now, if you paid attention to his discussion with Sam Harris and subsequent commentaries he's offered or his lectures, Jorden Peterson is someone who's somewhat motivated by the mystical. And he also believes in sort of Darwinian principles as a primary absolute. Remember in this discussion with Sam Harris, he mentioned, well, you know, something can't be true if it's antithetical to life, right? So from this, a lot follows, I think, and this is my interpretation. I mean, I have not talked to Jorden Peterson, although I wouldn't mind having a conversation with him. But I think he believes in some sort of semi-cosmic or almost mystical biological imperative that men engage women on their own terms and women engage men on their own terms. I think he believes that suffering and struggle in and of themselves are something noble and enriching. And I'll have a lot more to say in a future video on suffering and struggle as concepts and where they actually belong after correct analysis is applied. However, I think he believes this. I think he believes these concepts are noble, enriching, good for the soul, and that there's something good about self-immolation. Now, no pun intended here. Many of you might remember a gentleman, I believe it was in New England, who self-immolated. He lit himself on fire in front of a courthouse because he couldn't make his alimony payments, or just because everything had been stripped away from him. What Dr. Jorden Peterson describes is not an uncommon phenomenon. Of course, there's the issue of Nawalt, but I want to address this first, which is to say, Jorden Peterson believes in these kinds of biological cosmic imperatives as a sort of thou shalt. They're almost sort of commandments. So when he talks about making the proper sacrifices to women in this video, he is referring to being that sort of embodiment, that scion of male disposability, because there's an imperative for that. But I think also, conversely, he would argue that women should be meek and submissive, or I don't really know exactly what he would argue, but something along those lines, that the sexes exist in some sort of bio-mystical symbiosis, and they both need to, play upon each other's strengths, or yada, 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 something along those lines. So it's a kind of man-up argument he's offering, but it's not a traditional one by any stretch. Well, it is traditional, but it's infused with his own ideology and his own tendency to believe in the mystical, which is to say, you have the dragon of chaos, and then you have Shiva the destroyer, and all this essentially claptrap, I think. Yes, you can superimpose interpretations of reality that smack of the mystical, and they can even make sense. I mean, the myths he discusses, the narratives, the archetypes, yeah, they make sense. They make sense because they're derivative of biology. However, to view that as something that should be heeded in an absolute sense, to pursue that as your primary objective in life, as a primary absolute, is silly. So, yes, he's saying Nawalt, and in some sense that's true. I mean, there are autistic women who essentially have male brains, so but they're still women. So yeah, they don't fall within this category. My general view is that it is extremely unwise, at the very least, given the circumstances and given the state of affairs that have been in place for decades now in the West, and not just in the West, I think it's unwise in general, to get married. Because you're not going to get very much return on your investment in many cases. And this idea that's often promoted that you can be a mind reader, that you can know someone perfectly and that they will never betray you, well, that's just not the case. This is poppycock. But then again, I believe firmly that Peterson would say, go ahead and get married anyway, despite all the risks, no matter how dangerous the outcome might be, because he thinks that there's something noble and enriching about suffering in itself. Of course, suffering is a means to an end. And I think a lot of this can be derived from his Christian ideology. Christianity, since its inception, the mythical figure at its center, the figurehead of Jesus. And I'm not someone who subscribes to a historical Jesus, or I think it's unlikely. But regardless, this figure of Jesus, the passio, which is suffering. I mean, passion originally meant suffering. That's what it means in Latin. That is central to Christianity, to suffer to attain something greater. In his case, he's elevated by his Father / as himself, whatever, the Trinity, to something omnipotent, right? And many martyrs followed suit. And so I think that Jordan's a big advocate of martyrdom, believing in suffering because there's something noble or enriching about it. because it fits in with Christian ideology, frankly speaking, and his own take on things. I mean, I think Jorden Peterson's worldview is a complicated mix between Darwinian principles and Christianity sort of fused together. And so the Christian, the Darwinian, in his case, offer simultaneously sort of ethical guidance, as it were, for people who might be lost, and sort of pushing them along the way. Well, the Christian obviously accounts for the need for suffering, the reason why you should risk things, what have you. And the Darwinian, well, you're a man, so participate in the dominance hierarchy, court women on their own terms, and women likewise court men on their own terms. Women don't court men, receive men on their own terms. I mean, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with that worldview. It's an opinion, it's a view, it's a stance that one can have, right? But it's not my worldview, and it's not my stance. I don't see, as much as I'm a fan of understanding biology and human evolution and evolutionary psychology, I mean, it's for the most part a mainstay of my channel, I don't see these as sort of semi-mystical guiding principles by which I should derive my life's meaning, or the reasons for which I should do things. Now, that's why if you were to offer Peterson, I think, in a live conversation, and I would welcome such a live conversation, just saying, the argument of the juice isn't worth the squeeze, which for me is the reason. I mean, I've never been interested in marriage, but even so, long-term relationships, cohabitation, I just find women just too troublesome to deal with. My life is more peaceful. I have more money from it. I mean, the idea that I should struggle, I've been there. I mean, as an older man, I've been there. I've had an amazing variety of women, but a decent share of women. And I mean, I've been there, done that, nothing special, really nothing special. And I'm reminded of that every now and then because of stories I hear and what have you. So I mean, his pitch, of course, to the juice is not worth the squeeze, but well, it is worth the squeeze because there's something that elevates you and makes you a better man or what have you. But this would just fall on deaf ears to me. I don't respond to this kind of thing. And it's not traditional shaming, I think. It's really Jorden being passionately dogmatic and ideological with his fusion of sort of Christian/Darwinian principles theology. Everything is an archetype. Yes, there are archetypes. That's the whole point of generalities and generalizations. Women, that's why MGTOW-minded men, in a general sense, don't take the Nual thing seriously. Because human beings follow a certain behavioral and evolutionary trajectory, and it's predictable, and you can understand why men do things and why women do things. It's just that Jorden takes a step further and say, well, yeah, and you should be doing them because God, evolution, the cosmos, take your pick, or all of the above, sort of commanded you to do so, and you'll be a better person for it. I don't think self-immolation is necessary or even warranted. Why? And as I said, in a separate video, I wanted to address self-sacrifice and struggle and all these things, but I don't think it comes from a place of malice. I mean, Peterson has never struck me as a malicious person, but what he has struck me as is a guy who's very much driven by his own personal ideology, a fusion of the Christian and Darwinian, as well as the vast amount of literature he's absorbed. He's extremely well read, far more so than I am or ever will be. But that doesn't necessarily make his worldview an accurate one. And this is just an opinion, essentially. Okay, well, there are certain evolutionary trajectories. He would agree with that, I assume. And you should follow it. Climb the dominance hierarchy, work hard, sacrifice your health, suffer. In the end, it'll be worth it. And the thing is, this is the strange thing, I think, to a lot of men, and a lot of the commentary in response to him, I think, was lacking, is that he would view, even if you were a man who lost everything, because he talks a lot about suffering in life. So, you know, you lost your children, they hated you because the mother turned them against you. You lost your money, you're living in a hole someplace. He would say that's an enriching experience because you nourished your soul or something. I'm pretty sure he would say something to that effect. So, but these are not arguments that I find particularly cogent, valid, or convincing. This falls on deaf ears for me. So, you know, what more is there to say about this? He's got a certain ideological perspective that I oftentimes strongly disagree with, although I can certainly see the validity in looking for archetypes and understanding them as a basis of human behavior. That doesn't mean that they're imperatives that you need to follow. That doesn't follow from that. And I think that's where he's sort of missing the forest for the trees, because he's just so driven by his Christian Darwinian ideology that that you're not going to get a different outcome. He'd be, as I said, just as willing to say woman up as man up. I don't really care what women do as long as they're not taking my money and affecting me indirectly. They can do whatever the hell they want. Likewise with men. But he would say, become a better woman, attract a man, do the things that are necessary. Just like he would say, become a better man, attract a woman. You need to have a partner. You need to get married. You need to have children. All of these because, one, Darwinian imperatives, and two, some pseudo-Christian enriching story about blah, 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 blah. I don't really have too much more to say about this, but I think this is a different interpretation of that statement and statements he's made subsequently and also in the past. Jorden is, for lack of a better word, an ideologue. And, smart as he is, as well-read as he is, he's certainly smarter than I am. But I can also see through why he's saying certain things and why he believes certain things. And I'm not buying it. And none of you needs to buy that either if you don't want to. It's a package of eggs and half of them are broken. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Hey, if Jorden Peterson wants to come on, discuss these things with me, he's more than welcome to. It'd be pretty cool. Anyone, take care and enjoy your day, early morning here. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.